So if you're asked to solve this equation, best way to do it is with the quadratic formula, because you have well, first you would want to see if you can factor, but if you need to use the quadratic formula, the big goal is to first get this in standard form. So standard form, it looks like this. So an example in blue, A is 2, B is 4, C is -9. Notice I took the negative sign with me. And the other thing about standard form is make sure you don't take any variables when you're trying to define A, B, and C. So in a quadratic, it's standard form if it's in descending order, so x squared, x, no x. And we like it like that because then we can define what A is. A is 2, B is 4, and C is -9. So a different example. Here, A is -9, B is 4, C is 2. That's because A is always the coefficient of the x being squared. So if you take this bottom equation and then put it into standard form, it should look like this. In order to do that, I'd have to subtract 3x squared from both sides. So I'm going to have -3x squared minus 2x plus 2 equals 0. Now it's in standard form, so now I can tell what my A, my B, and my C are. So this is why it's so important to recognize standard form. Because if you don't have it set up correctly, you can't use this formula correctly. And this formula is like the quick way to get to the final answer. I mean, it's not quick, but it's the quickest way to get to the final answer. Your negative b plus or minus, it means you have to solve it twice, once for plus, once for minus. The square root of b being squared, subtracted by 4 times a times c, divided by 2a. You can just Google the quadratic formula if you can't read my penmanship. It's all over the internet. But what we're going to do is we're going to plug the a everywhere where we see it's supposed to go in the quadratic formula. Plug -2, the b, everywhere where we see a b in the formula, and plug this obviously in wherever we see a c. So this is what it looks like when I plug it in the formula. Make note, that was a -2. So a -2 gave me a +2 here. But I plugged everything in, and part where students always mess up is the minus signs here, so make sure to watch that as we simplify. Order of operation says exponent needs to come first. A square root is an exponent. It's a 1/2 power. So we got to simplify what's happening in here first. I've done -2 squared makes 4. And then I also did 4 times -3 times 2 gives me -24. Now notice I didn't say minus 24, I said minus a -24. Because there's a minus sign already built in here. I didn't use that when I made these calculations. I did 4 times 3 gives me -12, -12 times 2 gives me -24. So watch those signs, because now you can hopefully see what's happening. That's minus and negative. That's going to be a positive. So I simplified the bottom too. That's what she looks like right now. So still trying to simplify that radical, because that's an exponent. 4 minus -24, that means I'm doing 4 plus 24. So I got 4 plus 24 gives me 28. So here's my two solutions. And there's some simplification that can happen here too. I rewrote the square root as square root of 4 times square root of 7, because that still makes 28. And I did that because I know what square root of 4 is. It's 2. So if you want to be even pickier, you know, math teachers and math people are picky. Factor out a 2 from everything. Still almost there, because if both these can have a 2 factored out. Oh, my finger's hurting from writing. So I factored out a 2 from everything. So when you break it up in two separate fractions, well, 2 over -6 means 1 over -3. So you got -1 over 3 here, and then -7 over 3 here. And you can break it up in two separate fractions up there. You know, I don't know what your professor's going to be looking for, but you know, this is right. And you actually had the right answer way up here. This is right. It'll come out to the right decimal number. It just isn't really technically simplified all the way. So this should be our final answer.